Oh, it's so nice to see everyone. Oh, I'm going to share this screen here. All right, welcome back, folks. Just going to give a minute for everyone to filter in and get their audio and video on. And in the meantime, you can just pop into the chat.
Okay,
let us know where you're from.
Okay.
And what you appreciate in nature, or something that you're feeling grateful for, or it brings you joy, or it makes you smile. All right, I'm going to stop my share so I could just see you guys. Oh, it's so nice to see everyone's faces. Oh, gosh. Oh, it's like a family reunion. Well, look at Lisa. I love Lisa's arms raised, and Libby and Cindy. I don't want to pick favorites, but I can see so many faces. Oh, it's just warming my heart. Yeah, maybe everyone go over and look at the gallery and just take a look and see who's here today. Oh, Walt from New York. Cindy's here. Oh, Barbara's here too, and Rebonto, of course, from London joining us, and Della and Holly from down the street, and Caroline. Okay, if I don't say all of your names, please forgive me. I am just really excited to see. I'm just, my heart is full. All right, let's go over to the chat and see where everyone is from. Okay, so we've got Kansas City, Missouri, Sunsets and Podcasts, Rivers. Yes, Amy's letting us know Rivers. Barbara's in the Netherlands. Oh, that's so cool. Rain and wind. Rose from Arizona, monsoon rains. Oh my gosh. I was in Utah recently and we got through some thunderstorms. It was really amazing. Chris is grateful for the power that's on. Rain-filled summer. Oh, Walt is getting some sunshine. Yeah, so if you're just hopping in, type in the chat where you're from and something you're feeling grateful for, and then go on over and see where everyone's from and just scan. I see some fragrances and fog and sun, birds, temperatures, shorebirds, nature journaling. Oh gosh, there's so much. Yes, there's so much to be grateful for. Today, my local sky is one color and it is light gray, and it is one like uniform sheet. I went for a walk this morning. It's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm looking at a movie screen. And it made me a little bit sad that there wasn't any sun, but you know what I was really feeling grateful for was that I got up early this morning, and I've gotten out of the practice of getting out early, and there were so many birds out there greeting me and singing to me, and I just thought, I've missed you all. What has happened in my life that I've gotten out of practice? And so it was just a reminder that yeah, I can choose to wake up a little bit earlier, go outside and say hello to my bird friends if I want to at any time. And for those of you who don't know, earlier in the morning is the best time to go to see the birds, because they've slept all night, they've waken up, and they're hungry like we are, and they want to get breakfast. So they're going out singing and traveling and getting food. So if you go outside and you're nearby nature, you'll see lots of birds. Okay. Well, I'm just going to dive in here. Oh, before we do that, so last time we met a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, what was the topic? Does everyone remember? We talked about, it was smells, right? Scents. Yeah, I see everyone's pointing to their nose. Would love to give, like, maybe 5 minutes if like 1 or 2 or 3 people want to just share maybe something that stood out for them if they've used their nose since that time. In exploring nature. Does anyone want to share anything about smell? Just go on ahead and wave, and I'll see if I can find you. Ivea is here to co-host and help me out, so she can let me know if someone is waving and wants to say something about smells. All right. No one. Okay. So the next coming weeks. Oh, there's someone wanting to share. Who is
Oh,
it?
Barbara. I just saw Barbara.
Oh, great. Barbara, would you like to tell us something about
Uh,
anything
yeah,
that you smelled?
well, it just so I just arrived in Netherlands and I just noticed a different smell here to California. And today I went on a long hike with my mom, and what we smelled is it's like where we live is oh, I don't know the English terms, but it smells like swamp. So we went around the lake that's originally made from swampy area, and we had just enjoyed that smell. So I didn't do any any nature journaling, but that's something we experienced today.
Lovely. Yes, I noticed that smell too. I traveled with my family from California to Utah. And yeah, there were different smells. And I also noticed something with my nose, but it's not a smell, it's a different sense. It was the lack of humidity or the dryness in the air. So I don't know. I've never spent that much time in such a dry place. So my nose was giving me the signal that
Mhm.
the moisture in the air was much lower than what I'm used to on the coast of California. So
Oh,
our nose can tell us a little bit more information than just the fragrance. But yeah, even if you don't nature journal it, I want to encourage everyone to just pay attention when you are outside. The senses that come to our ears and to our eyes and to our noses. What do you notice, right? And help us be alive in our world. What's around, and using our senses helps us be in the moment right now. And it also gets our mind out of all the crazy stuff that goes around. So it's a dual purpose of getting to know your nature and getting out of that chattering mind. All right. Is there anyone else who wants to share something about smells or fragrances that they noticed? Okay. All right. Well, if you think of something later, we have sharing time at the end. So today we have a special guest. So we're doing a virtual field trip format. So we're going to do about a 2-hour time period. And I'm going to do a little intro. We'll do a warm up. Amy's going to take over and she's going to take us for a walk down to the Cahaba River. So I hope everyone brought some water shoes and a waterproof bag to put your journal in, maybe a zip top bag. If you don't have that now, go on over and grab a zip top bag to put your journal in, and probably a sun hat. And then in a few minutes, we'll give you a few minutes to gather those things. I'm going to do a few slides here to introduce those of you who you haven't been with us for a while. We have some intro slides. Let me see here, go back. Okay. So we are going to be meeting for the next few months, twice a month instead of the usual weekly sessions. And today is, I actually didn't correct that one. It's Amy. In 2 weeks, we have Jan Ruby Crystal. I don't know if she's here today, but she's a regular member. She is an art professor, and she has a background in, actually, just an artistic um, very skilled at colored pencil drawing. She does art, but she's going to show us how we can use colored pencils in our nature journals and how to blend the colors of regular colored pencils and watercolor pencils. So bring your pencils and join us in 2 weeks for that one. And then the 1st and 15th of September, stay tuned for those topics. All right, again, I just want to announce for now, we still have our nature journal sharing page. So you can head on over to Padlet, and I think Ivea will, or Amy will pop in the link for this if you're interested in going and checking out what other members have done for the different topics that we've had each week. And feel free to share your post, or put in a nice comment for our fellow members. So a few new developments. I have a new Patreon page, and Patreon is a place where patrons like you or me, all of us as patrons, we can support our favorite artists and creative people. And Patreon is a place where we can go and make a monthly pledge to help our favorite artists do the work that they do and allow them to grow that into our community and shine and reach more people. So go and check that out. I'm not the only one that's on there. You know, there are other folks of all different kinds of artistic, creative backgrounds that are on there. So go check that out. I also have a new community that I'm going to launch at the end of this month, and I have a wait list going on with a few. It's a survey, so you can check that out if you're interested in a online but not social media community for all of us to have conversations, connect, have discussions, have special mini workshops for us, and Q&A sessions, all kinds of good stuff. I think what I'll do is have you send me a message in the chat. So if you go down to the chat, click on the little blue box that says everyone, if you tip the arrow, you can select my name and send me your email. Then I will send you a link. I think that's the easiest way. Or if you're already getting my newsletter, it's in the latest newsletter that I sent a few days ago. So check that out. And there's lots more information about what will be included, and it's going to be evolving. So depending on who's joining, you can help me build what a really fun place for our community to connect. All right. And as always, thank you so much for your support in whatever way that you're able to give it, by being present and participating and sharing and communicating with each other. That is one great way that you're supporting our community. Another way is making a donation. You can go to my website to make a donation, direct, a one-time donation or recurring. You can also visit Patreon and check out that site and make a donation at different levels that are recurring to help support this work. All right. So before we dive into Amy's nearby nature, I think I'm going to stop my share here for a moment. I wanted to just give just to give you a little ideas on how you can set up your nature journal pages. So for the next hour, Amy is going to be taking us for a walk, and she's asked me to give just a few format tips for your nature journal. Sometimes I do this too. When I go out to nature journal, I'm so excited. I start drawing all over the page, and then I forget to leave room for a title or leave room for a little map or, you know, some other questions that I want to ask. So here are some ways that, let me just share my other screen, that we might be able to, all right, can you see my journal? Hopefully you can see my journal. Okay, I'm assuming that it's working because for some reason I can't see anybody here. Okay, I often put the date on the page. So I'm going to do like a generic journal. Make sure you find a place for the date right now. Anywhere, it could be on the top of the bottom. I would like to put it on the top, but you can put it wherever you want, and maybe leave a space for a title. And you don't have to do like fill all these spaces in now, but just to think about when you're doing your journal page, just leave a title. Amy's going to share a map with us. So maybe you want to leave a little space somewhere where you can fill out a map later. And as we're going along and talking, she'll give us some facts, and you'll want to maybe write a few things down. But really the focus today is going to be on exploring, just like we're walking with Amy in Alabama. Like, we've taken this flight, we've gone to Alabama, and we're not going to be doing this as a lecture. We're going to be doing this as an exploration. So each of us are going to see different things through our own eyes, and we're encouraging you to put what you notice, what do you wonder, and what questions do you have about what you see, and jot them in your journal, write them in your journal. Because when we write them down, that's going to trigger some other questions that come up. So write down the questions in your journal, and we will have a little bit of time at the end for some questions, but we really want to focus on this session as an exploration of really diving into allowing your curiosity and sense of wonder to grow. And, you know, going with Amy, and she's going to show us like what is really special about this place. And so instead of gathering facts and knowledge, we're going to gather experiences and sketch those things. And some of the pictures are going to move quickly. And if you've been here before, you know that we've practiced doing some gesture sketches and contour drawings. And I'm going to preface and let you know that Amy has been generous enough to share most of these photos with us as a PDF that I will have make available to you afterwards. So you can come back, you can watch the recording, you can look at the photos, fill in some details. So I'm just going to just come with the idea of an open mind and letting go of having to get everything down and just be present with the experience. And when we sketch some pictures, we're capturing the feeling in the moment that we see it. So it's going to be different than if you were to rewatch this and draw all the pictures neatly. So I'm just going to encourage you to try something different today if this is new to you. And if you are new to drawing, not to worry. We're going to do a quick warm up in the beginning of how we can do some contour drawings and some gesture sketches and just go with the flow, right? We're going to go down the river, go with the flow, join us. We're all going to do this together. And at the end, we'll have an opportunity to share and ask some questions at the end. All right. So let's see. How about if we do a few, I'm going to do a new share here. Does anyone have any questions right now? All right. We are going to, I'm not sure what am I sharing my desktop? Let's see.
We see a doggy.
We see a dog. Okay, my notebook. And we're going to do just a couple of exercises to warm up. Oh, it's not July anymore. It's August 1. Okay. We're going to do, how about we do a blind contour and a modified contour of this little guy. So a blind contour, for those of you who don't know, is looking at an object and drawing it on the page without looking at your paper. So we're going to use, this is training our eye and our brain and our hand to work together. We're going to be looking at this dog picture, and as our eye is going over all these little parts of the dog, our hand is going to be drawing on the paper, and we're going to use a continuous line. So that pen stays on the paper as though it's magnetized, and one continuous line. And this is not an exercise to draw the dog, but really to train our eye, brain, and hand to work together so that we can draw what we see. All right, so we're going to go, and I'm just going to start over on the left-hand side, just because that's what I'm comfortable with. And my eye is going to be tracing around the dog. And I'm going to invite everyone to follow along and do the same. And you can follow whatever part of the dog that you see that you'd like to trace. So you can go in a different direction than I'm going. And because this is a continuous line, I'm just following the contours of this dog and noticing all the little details and drawing what I see. And because it's a continuous line, I'm going to backtrack to capture some other details here. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You can go whatever direction you want. You can lift up the pen by accident. That's totally fine. Keeping it down on the page helps me keep a sense of reference of where I'm going. And I guarantee these pictures are going to look really goofy. So don't worry about what you think is happening on your page. All right, and this is a really great practice that you can do on your own. You can do this more slowly, you can do this quickly. I'm kind of doing this as a medium speed here. If we go slowly, it's actually very relaxing. Okay, I think I finished my dog, so I'm gonna look down. Whoa! So if your contour drawing looks, or blind contour looks a little goofy, that's totally okay. I'm gonna label this blind contour drawing, and then I'm gonna do a modified contour drawing, and right next to it I'm going to do this dog again, but this time I'm going to, I like to keep my pen on the page to make a continuous line, but I'm going to look back at my paper so I can get a better sense of reference of where my pen is going, and just doing the same drawing and without worrying about it looking perfect. This is just practice for my hand to listen to what my brain is telling it to do. And again, I really like this continuous line so I don't feel, I don't know, it's very relaxing. And if you're feeling a little stressed out and this is new to you, not to worry, it gets easier with time, the more that you do this. And, you know, when we do this kind of drawing, we're really paying attention to the subject. So like I'm noticing these interesting wrinkles on the back of this dog's leg, and the cowlicks, like how the fur is growing, things that I might not notice if I had just looked at this picture. Even if I looked at it for, 2 minutes and then walked away, I don't think that I would have noticed a lot of these details. Yeah. And you can do this anytime with any subject, any photo, any real 3D thing that you're holding in your hand or that's in front of you. And it's a really fun exercise. And often my nature journal pages are full of contour drawings. I don't do like detailed botanical illustrations. Like in my journal, I like to capture things live while I'm seeing it. So I'll do them quickly in this way. And then it has character. I don't know about if anyone else does this and finds that, but it's really fun. Okay. All right. So another type of drawing that we can do are gesture sketches. So let's find one that's, how about this one? So if we're out in the field and we're looking at a subject and it's going to move quickly, like maybe we're out on a walk on the Cahaba River with Amy, some pictures might go by quickly, we can capture the general shapes. So we're going to do some really quick drawings and just capturing the general shapes. And if this is new to you and it's freaking you out, just breathe. It's okay. You can watch if that feels more comfortable, but I'm going to invite you to take your pen and put it on the page and follow along, just to get the sense of how do we look for these general shapes. So I'm seeing this part of the body and the upper body and the head, and then a swoop for the tail. And maybe that's all I get before the squirrel runs away. And if I have more time, I think this should be running for 30 seconds. I can add a little bit more detail. And sometimes my nature journals, this is all I'm able to capture. And then I can write what I also noticed in words, because it's about words, pictures, and numbers. So I see the body is a rectangle and these legs, 4 legs coming out, and the head and neck. Right, and just blocking out the general shapes and not worrying about all the details, like eyes eyeballs and eyelashes. I don't worry about those. And let's get just the body and the general shape of the subject. He's got really knobbly knees. What do I see? Like the big center head and these big ears. They look like it's like a big butterfly. Might just scribble those down in the body and just keep the pen moving. These are gesture sketches, just scribble sketching, I like to call it. And the more time you have, the more refined the picture can be, but sometimes you're only going to see an image for 30 seconds. And in that time, what can you capture with the sketch? Because later you can put words down, right? So you might say some words while you're noticing this bird. Oh, it's got, gray, dark gray and light gray streaks in its feathers. Its tail looks kind of ratty. Oh, it's got something white on its leg. Is that a letter? It looks like maybe a scroll tied to its leg. Oh, this is a messenger pigeon. It's going to send a message to someone. But just capturing the feeling of it, right? And the more that you do this, the easier it is to start to see. And I'm not going to worry about the details, the small details of feathers or eyes or beak detail. I'm getting the general shape, right, of like the feeling of what does this egret feel like. All right, and then if you have time, adding a little bit more detail, like, oh, I see these little wispy things, and there's wispy things up here. Okay, how about this last one? Another bird, and he's got a really interesting triangle on his head. I like that triangle shape. Beautiful stellars, Jay. Capturing. And maybe the Jay is going to move around in different positions, and you're going to scribble sketch the different positions that he does in your journal page and not worry about the details. And you can write about, what kind of behavior he was doing, or maybe different sounds he was making. All right, so I'm going to stop there. This is lineofaction.com, and anyone can go and do this kind of exercise, because the pictures you can set to go 30 seconds, and it's a really fun way to get some warm up. We haven't done that in a long time, so hopefully that was fun to do. All right, I think I'm going to go over and I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to hand it over to Amy, who's going to share about her nearby nature. So why don't you turn it to a new page, put the date, make that space for the title, and leave some spaces in your journal for your questions, and just jot those down. And I'm gonna step aside so Amy can take over.
Let me get my share set up. Oh, wait. I forgot to optimize for video. Let me try this again. Okay. All right, can everybody see this okay?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so today we're gonna go to the Cahaba River. It's one of my favorite places. It's just something that's, less than an hour from my house. And I love to visit this area. Hopefully by the end of the share, you'll understand why. Okay, so this is in Alabama in the southeastern United States, and the Cahaba River is on this right map in blue, and all the area that it drains, it's on just kind of in the central part of the state, and it's one of the last free-flowing rivers, with most of the other rivers in Alabama have been dammed for hydropower and flood control. And so one of the really exciting things about Alabama to me is the biodiversity that's found here. There's so many different kinds of living organisms that live in this state. And a lot of that is because of the geology of the state. The Appalachian Hills meet the Gulf Coastal Plain here. And so especially, there's a lot of rivers. So especially for aquatic biodiversity, things that live in the river, Alabama is #1 in the United States for aquatic biodiversity. But if you talk about biodiversity as a whole, then it's #5. If you consider the amount of land that Alabama takes up, you know, and kind of divide that by the number of species, it's really the most biodiverse state per square mile in the United States. So that's a really special place for a biologist to live. Okay, so if y'all are sketching the map, I'm gonna move on to a little more zoomed in map. But like Melinda said, all these slides are going to be available in a PDF if you still need a little bit more time. So the Cahaba River starts just northeast of Birmingham in what is the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And it goes through the southern suburbs of Birmingham and out into the countryside, through the national forest just a little bit and kind of skirting the edge of it till it reaches the Alabama River just east of Selma, Alabama. Okay, so today I'm picking y'all up at the airport and we're gonna hop in a nice big car and drive down Interstate 2059 until we get to this little exit here, heading for West Blockton, Alabama, and down to this green spot here that is the Cahaba National Wildlife Refuge. Okay, so when we arrive at the refuge, we're going to get out of our cars, make sure that we have all of our equipment with us. Don't forget your nature notebook in the car. Get your hat, put on sunscreen if you need to. And we're going to meet a group of friends here from our homeschool co-op. And so we're going to have several families with us. And let me just pause and let that load for a second. Okay, so we're going to walk into the river here. It's going to, usually it's about a quarter mile. It takes about 10 minutes. We're going to cross a stream on the way. And make sure you keep your shoes on because there may be, you know, broken bits of shell. Sometimes there's broken glass. But we're going to walk into the river. I've sped this up, so it'll just take about 3 minutes or so. Okay, the quality on this is looking terrible. How's it look to you, Melinda?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it's a little pixelated, but we get the picture of where you're headed.
Okay, all right. Okay, because it's looking really choppy on my end, but hopefully it'll get better. Okay, well, anyway, this just gives you an idea of where we're going. And so the Cahaba River, this is Caffey Creek that we're crossing here. And it's a nice warm day in Alabama. It's late May. The temperature is in the mid 80s. Surprisingly today, it's not very humid. And Caffey Creek here is pretty cold when we step into it. So, you know, there may be a few shrieks of unexpected coldness coming from people, but we keep walking across it. Now be very careful because the rocks here are slippery. Okay, so I don't want anybody to fall down, but just be careful as you're crossing the creek. And then we're going to continue on across the creek. The Cahaba itself has lots of really large slabs of rock in it. And it's really neat. Right here is where the Appalachian foothills meet the Gulf Coastal Plain. And it's one of the few places that these lilies I want to show you grow. They're in several streams throughout the Southeast United States, and they really need fast flowing water and lots of sunshine to be able to grow. So in the streams that have been dammed up, the habitat has changed and they're not able to grow there anymore. Here it has large slabs of rock that they're kind of angled so that the upstream end sticks up and the downstream end is submerged more into the river. And when the lilies produce seeds, or when their bulbs break off from where they are, they float downstream, and they don't float like on the top, but they're floating along the bottom, and they get wedged up in these rock areas. So that's where they lodge, and they start to grow there. All right, so here we're slowing down. You can see the first stand of lilies that we're coming to. And so the other really cool thing is that, like I said, these lilies have to have flowing water, so they get lots of oxygen, and they need to have lots of sunlight. People have tried to plant these in their yard, and it just doesn't quite work. So several biologists have worked on the different conditions that they need for growth. And really, it's the middle of a sunny river with the rocky places to wedge that suits the lilies best. Okay, so in just a second, we're going to come back and put in a little landscape of what we were just seeing. But right now, we've arrived at our little sandy beach along the edge. And go ahead and put your stuff down, pull out your nature journal, and we're going to see if we can get in a sketch of the landscape before we venture out into the river. Sorry, I'm working on advancing to the next slide.
Amy, do you know what kind of trees are in this habitat?
Yeah, there's a lot of sycamores. I love how they just overhang. Whoops, why is this? Sorry. Okay, here we have a great view of the river, and nope, sorry. Okay, just give me a second to get my computer working right. Do you see my whole desktop here?
Yeah, we do see the whole desktop.
Okay.
If you want to go back to the Google Slides, like close it and then start the presentation again.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Sorry. Let me try my screen share again here. And
so the name of the lilies that we're talking about are also called the Cahaba lilies because they're growing here in the Cahaba River, right?
Right. So the sorry, I'm having a hard time talking and figuring this out.
Okay, no worries. No worries. So yeah, if you have been taking some notes and maybe making some like rectangles, I like to make rectangles in my journal to save a place, because I'll say, okay, I know that I want to do a little landscapito later, and then I can move on. I started to do a little landscape of the river, and then I moved on because the slides changed, and I'll just go back and add some more detail from my memory or come back to the slides later. So you can also do the same.
All right. So yeah, these flowers are found throughout the southeastern United States, not as much as they were, of course, because of the dams, but on the Cahaba River, we call them Cahaba lilies, but they are known elsewhere as shoals lilies because they're found in the shoals of the river. So there's lots of sycamores, there's oak trees and pine trees, there's maple trees. My favorite, of course, are the sycamores because they just hang over the river and they just look so graceful to me. So this is what we're looking at here. We're looking downstream on the river from the riverbank, and we have in front of us a shoal area where the river gets shallow because it's running over these large slabs of rock, and it's moving quickly there. And this is where the lilies have lodged up in there. Now, closer to us in the foreground is a pool where the river is a little bit deeper. And so as it gets to the shallower area, it runs, it starts running really fast. And not only are there the lilies, the little white flowers that you see there, they look little from here. We also have some water willow that we'll see in a minute.
So you can take this time to do some scribble sketching of the landscape.
See, there's a mimosa tree in the bottom left corner.
Mm.
And there may be like a red bud or something also along the left side. Okay, let's take about 20 more seconds on this landscapeito because we have so much more exciting stuff to see. And the kids are starting to get restless. They are ready to get in the river. And indeed, they are already starting to climb in. You can see that in the shoal area, there are deeper spots and more shallow spots. And I try to encourage the kids where it's running swiftly not to get in above their knees, you know, unless they're a good swimmer or have a life jacket on. And you can see how tall these lily plants are compared to these kids. Now, often the lilies bloom and it's bank to bank. The whole river looks like it's just full of lilies. What you can't see from here is over on the far right, that is where the river is running much more swiftly and is deeper over there. So this area is a little bit slower moving, but still faster than in one of the pools of water. And so this water in the main
Amy,
stem
can
of the
you tell us
river.
what time of year this is?
Yeah, so we're meeting here in late May. The lilies bloom from about Mother's Day through Father's Day. And this group usually meets here every year to go on this pilgrimage to see these lilies. The river water here is a little bit warmer than it was in Caffey Creek. And since, you know, it's in the mid 80s, it feels really nice to get in it and just sit down. It cools us off a little bit, but it's not quite as freezing cold as that creek that we crossed a minute ago. All right, well, since these kids are getting in the water, you may want to go ahead and put your journal in your waterproof sack or tuck it under your arm and go out to the middle of the river so we can look at these lilies more closely. The rocks are really slippery, so be very careful. And that's why I bring a waterproof bag to stick my nature journal in, so that it's not like if I'm gonna fall, but it's like when I'm gonna slip into the river, so that it doesn't ruin my whole nature journal. All right, so we're gonna walk on out with these kids, and then we come to the first stand of lilies that we see. And, you know, I just wanna pause here for a minute, take out my journal when I find a nice spot to stand, and just do a little quick sketch of what I'm seeing here before I zoom in a little bit more to look at the lilies close. So we'll take about a 30-second, just kind of get the gesture of what these, we call this a stand of lilies, this little clump here. All right, just a few more seconds and we're going to look at it more closely. All right. A video that should be popping up. Here we go. Make this full screen so we can see it better. And so I took this video just to give everybody the sense of being out in the river and the water's flowing by. There's a little breeze that makes it just bearable to be out here. And in just a second, I'm gonna stop and we'll focus in on one lily. If I can get my computer to work again.
So this is always a perfect time as we're moving through these pictures to do, quick gesture sketches or scribble sketches, right? And move all over your page. Don't be afraid of using up several pages today.
Okay, here we go. All right, so we're looking closer at one individual lily. And while y'all are sketching this lily, I'm going to show you some different features that I find are really unusual about this flower, because, you know, a lot of flowers have petals that are separate from each other. And the first thing I notice about this flower is that these petals are all fused together into a tube. It looks kind of like a trumpet. And also the part where the pollen is, the stamens, they come down here and they are fused into the petals, the little part that holds up the anther there. So the stamen right here is fused into the petal part. And then another thing that I notice is that the pistil, the part where the seeds are formed, that is this little green stem right here in the middle.
A little gray box in the center of your screen. There we go. It's gone now.
Okay. So the pistil is this green part in the middle that has like a little a round knob on the end, and it goes down into the very center of this trumpet like petals. And to me that looks like just really crazy, because it's just not like a typical flower that you might think of.
I'm also noticing that there's like these ruffly edges on the center, like the main circle area of the flower. And just for everyone's, you don't have to worry about any botanical language. Just describe in your journal what you see with your own words, and write your questions down and things that you notice. I'm noticing these like kind of wrinkly edges, but in an earlier flower, I noticed it was smooth. So I'm going to be looking in the future pictures to see if that's consistent with all the flowers, or maybe this is just this flower is really different.
Great idea. And I'm counting 6 of those little heads, the anthers that hold the pollen on them. And the trumpet part of the flower, that it looks like there's like maybe 6 different lobes to it. So
Yeah,
I love
sections.
I love putting numbers into my nature journal. I think it's really fun.
And I also see 6 of the really long petal-like features too.
Yeah.
And if you don't
But-
know what something's called, you can say 6 of these.
right? Thingamajigs. Okay, well, we're gonna move on and see what else we can see. Oh, here's some different flowers. So on the bottom right, you can see this is taken from the back of the flower, and you can see where those long white things come off of the back of the flower. How they're kind of separate from the trumpet-like tube. And then in this top picture on the right, you can see, I know the foreground's kind of blurry. You can see this is part of that pistil where the seeds are formed. And you can see how it comes out of the little trumpet part of the flower inside of it. And then over on the left, what I'm noticing is there's a bunch of pollen that has gotten all over the white part of the flower. It makes it look like it's spotted. And I can also see another flower starting to get ready to open in the back. So these are just some different perspectives on this one flower. Might want to do quick sketches here because we're going to move on so that we can take a look in some different ways. All right, so like I was saying, the bulbs of the flowers jam up into these rock crevices, and that's where they start sprouting. But these flowers do also produce seeds, and when they're pollinated and the seed forms, then it drops down into the river, and that's where it floats downstream a little bit, and then it jams up into one of the crevices and starts sprouting. These flowers are only open for a day, and you might wonder what pollinates them. And so let's think about that for a minute while I mention that. So this flower over here on the far right is yesterday's flower, and this flower that's open right now was one that opened last night, and then the stalk behind it is one that's opening tomorrow. And they all come off from the same place on this big stem that comes up. And to me, that's really cool because you can see like 3 days worth of flowers there in one spot. Now, back to the pollinator. There's a couple of biologists that have been working on the natural history of this flower, trying to figure out its life cycle. And they wanted to figure out what pollinates it because, you know, since these flowers are becoming more and more rare, getting close to endangered, they wanted to figure out, you know, well, can we make more of these flowers and put them back in the streams, or what can we do to help these flowers? And they wanted to figure out what pollinates it. Now, if you think about what kind of flowers hummingbirds come to, they're usually trumpet shaped, but they're often red because the red color attracts the hummingbirds. And if you think about what might attract bumblebees, it's usually a big wide flower, but it's often something that reflects a lot of ultraviolet light, like a violet or something like that. So when I see a white flower, the first thing that occurs to me is that it's going to be something that pollinates things at night. It's nocturnal. And that's because the flower doesn't put a lot of energy into making different colors. And the white color reflects the moonlight and the light of the stars really well. So what these biologists did was they went to the river and they sat out there at night and sat really, really still, and they waited until the pollinator came along. And they waited and they waited. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. It's getting kind of cold even for Alabama because, you know, it's still May, and It was dark and they're sitting in the river that's kind of cool and it's a little breezy. And one of them says to the other, well, we're not going to see it tonight. And the other guy says, I'm going to stay out here just a little bit longer. So, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. First guy goes off to bed. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, the second biologist is like, I think he's probably got the right idea. We're just not going to see it tonight. Maybe the conditions just aren't right. Maybe it's a little bit too breezy. So he's just about to get up out of the river when he sees this moth come up to the flower and start to drink its nectar. And he was so excited. So he found out that it is a plebeian sphinx moth that pollinates these flowers. And so that was a really neat scientific breakthrough to find out what pollinates the Cahaba lilies, because you also want to protect the pollinators to make sure that they aren't losing habitat, that they can continue to live and pollinate these flowers. All right, so here is a stand with a bunch of lilies looking a bunch of different directions. And I thought this would be a really neat picture for us to maybe either pick out one lily or a section of lilies to sketch. If you want to try to do a quick sketch, you could try to get them all. But you know, the really cool thing about nature journaling, when I'm doing my nature journal, is I can just pick out a little bit that I want to put in there. And I don't feel like I have to put in the whole thing, because sometimes that's just overwhelming to me. So we'll take just about a minute here to sketch a lily or several and put that in our notebooks. Now, this is a really great place to sit down with our notebooks. And I love, you know, there's several rocks that are sitting out of the water, but I love just sitting in the water and letting the water flow over me and just becoming one with the river while I sketch lilies.
So Amy, can you tell us, since I'm a little farther away from the lily than you are, is there a smell to this lily that you noticed, like right now during the day?
You know, I'm not noticing much right now, but I've heard that, you know, since they open at night and they're trying to attract their pollinator at night, I've heard that people can smell them in the evening when they open up. And they say it's not something they'd want to have in their house, but it's not completely unpleasant. But right now, I'm not really smelling much at all.
And
I am smelling
about
the river. It smells like I smell the trees in the forest, and it smells great out here, but I'm not smelling the flowers.
Thank you. And I'm wondering about like how these petals feel or the leaves feel. Can you give us some description about what we can put in our journal? They look kind of stiff, like the leaves are standing up.
Yeah, they're nice and thick and kind of leathery, and they look like straps. And they're maybe just the slightest bit waxy, but and then all of us, oh, okay, so then here's this picture of the lily from the backside, a little bit closer up than the last one that we saw. And you can really see here how those stamens are fused into the petals and how those petals are fused together to make that trumpet shape.
This is a great contour drawing page if we're going to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm doing a contour drawing. It's helping me pay attention to how each little petal is attached.
And then you can see in the middle, I don't know if you notice, this green sticking up. That's not a leaf there. That is that pistil that comes out of the center of the tube.
Oh, cool. The anthers remind me of windshield wipers, like when I lift the
They
windshield wipers
do.
off my car, and that how the blade kind of like is flexible.
While we're sitting here, we notice that down on one of the stems of the lilies, there's this, gosh, I don't even know what to call this. It's just some kind of crazy creature that's hanging onto one of the stems. And then we look closer at it, and the back of it has split open. So this is just the exoskeleton or the external skeleton that has remained behind from some kind of creature. And I've seen these before. This is one of the kids runs up and hands me this thing that they found under one of the rocks in the river. And it's the larval stage of a dragonfly. This, dragonflies live part of their life underwater. And the really cool thing about that is that they can spend up to several years underwater. And when they're ready to turn into an adult, they climb out on a leaf or a rock or on the stream bank or on a tree trunk, and the back of their exoskeleton splits open and they come out kind of like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. And they'll sit there for a minute and pump some fluid through their wings and just kind of unfold themselves from the origami that they've been folded up inside of their skeleton there. And in fact, one of the kids gives a shout from downstream and says, "Hey, look at this." And we see where a dragonfly is actually emerging right now from its exoskeleton and coming up. And right now it's just getting its wings out. And so I noticed that the shape of this one in the middle is a little bit different than either side. And that's because there's so many different species of dragonflies. They're all shaped a little bit differently from each other. And so I grab my sketchbook and I want to sketch this guy while he's sitting here, because like a butterfly, it's going to take him a few minutes to get his wings all ready to go and warm up and be ready to fly away. So I'm going to sketch this one real quick. I might do a gesture sketch just to make sure I get him before he leaves, and then fill in a few more details. All right, well, he's starting to fly away. Go
Amy,
ahead.
is he the one in the middle? Is he
Yes.
doing anything? Is it just really still while
It
we're
is
watching?
really
Is it,
still.
like making any movements or anything?
Not at all. It is really still. It is trying to, like, its wings have been folded up inside of his exoskeleton, like you can imagine a butterfly wings are in its chrysalis. So when it comes out, it's like got to unfold and get them all nice and stiff before it can fly away. So right now he is so still. In fact, you could even pick him up and he wouldn't move.
Wow, very cool. I've got lots of questions in my journal. I don't know about anyone else.
Absolutely. We'll try to answer some at the end, or you can just sit with those questions and enjoy pondering them. You can always Google them later, or if there's any really burning questions, I can try and email anybody or put those on Padlet afterwards.
Yeah, or even just like Amy said, just sit with it. I think what we're learning right now is just allowing ourselves to be curious and to ask questions and not have to find the answer right away and just watch what's going on.
And you know, what I found is I might write down a few questions that I think are kind of simple questions at first. Some of them, as a biologist, I think, well, I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to write it down anyway, because the process of writing it down helps get it out of my head onto paper. And that frees up my brain to ask the juicier questions. So I notice that as I write down more and more questions, then they get better and better. But if I keep one in my head, it's hard to get past that one to get to the better questions. That's, you know, what I've found for me.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Neil, my husband, he's an aquatic biologist, and he has been snorkeling in the stream. It's just deep enough in places to get in there with a mask and snorkel. And he's got this digital camera in his hands, and he is gonna take us down and show us some of the things that he's been looking at. All right, so there are a lot of snails. Now, you may not think about snails very much. He did his dissertation on snails. In Alabama, there's 147 different species of snails, and 77% of those are found only here. So really great place to learn about snails in these rivers. Okay, I'm gonna pause that for just a second and let it catch up. Maybe we can get better quality. But you can see the roots of the plant there, and there's snails all over these rocks. And there's a little fish swimming by. There are like 303 different species of fish in Alabama, and 41% of those are found only here. Okay, and then he's going to show us this other one that has some of the water willow that's growing amongst the lilies. Okay, some of that water willow grows under the water, and there's snails on it. And in just a second, I'm going to stop and show us just a picture of some snails on a rock, if anybody wants to sketch it. These videos aren't turning out quite as well as I'd hoped, but we still have some great pictures to sketch from.
So these are water willows, you said, and some of them are completely submerged.
Right. I guess when they're younger, they're still trying to grow up to reach the sunlight and the air above. All right, so here we have a picture of some snails that I took. My camera, my still camera, won't go underwater. It's not that waterproof. So I am standing and looking down into the water at my feet, and I see all these snails growing, but living on this rock. And I zoom in on one of them over on the left side so that we can get a better picture of what they look like. You can see its little antennae sticking out, and they're moving really slow, but it's like they're scraping whatever's on those rocks. And they're all over. I mean, it's hard to even step without stepping on the snails or scooting them to the side so you can put your foot down.
Amy, can you tell us roughly what size these snails are?
Oh yeah, so they're about the size of my thumbnail, or maybe just a couple of centimeters across. And some of them grow bigger. They can grow up to, you know, maybe a couple of inches even. Then there's some little bitty ones, like right down in this bottom right side, that they're just so tiny you can barely even pick them up. Maybe just a couple of millimeters.
And maybe these snails will remind you of something in your own nearby nature. Like here in California, we have little snails, marine snails, that this scene is reminding me of what it looks like in the ocean, in the tide pools sometimes, with lots of different snails gathering around, scraping algae off the rocks. So you can put that in your journal, what it reminds you of.
And then while we're looking around at the snails, we see this little school of fish. And let's see, oh, there's some little fish moving around. And you can see this area here is really gravelly on the bottom, where little rocks have moved down from upstream when the river has been running fast. See several different kinds of fish there. They're kind of hard to make out underwater, but you can tell that, you know, maybe some of them may not be like the others. Okay, here's a slightly different angle that we see another fish across the way. And this guy is really cool because he is dressed up for prom and ready to find some ladies. Now, at first, he's a little bit hard to see. He's sitting right here in the middle, kind of turning his face to us. Now he's turned around. And if you can see, there's a smaller kind of dull colored fish next to him. That's one of the ladies that he's chasing after. All right, so we're gonna get a picture of him. Let's see if we can get out our net, and we're gonna set it up so that we can catch some of these fish. We're gonna put this net across the river, and I need a few volunteers to help us kick up the rocks as we go downstream. And so I'm gonna grab some of these kids, and they're gonna kind of churn up the water and shuffle things around. And this is a dance move I like to call the Cahaba shuffle, as we go down the stream and kind of scare the fish into this net. And then we catch one of them and put it into a tank, like a little, just a little acrylic tank, so that we can look at it more closely. And this one is called a darter. And it's because they dart around on the stream beds. They live on the bottom of the river. You can kind of tell it because their mouth is near the bottom of their head. And they're called darters because the way their fins are shaped in the front, these pectoral fins, they angle them so the river presses down on them, and they don't have to spend a whole lot of energy staying in place on the bottom. And they can pick up the edge of one fin and the river water will start pushing them and they move around so fast. It looks like they're darting everywhere. And this one is in its nice finery for breeding. All these colors make it just stand out so the females can see them.
How big is this little fish?
That's a good question. So these fish are probably about 3 or 4 inches long. How are we doing on time, Melinda?
Oh, Melinda, I believe you're muted.
Thank you for letting me know. We've got about 10 minutes or so for some more sketching, and then we'll shift over to our sharing time.
All right.
I love the colors on this fish. Amy, you said that it's just the males and it's only a certain time of the year.
Right. So in the springtime, they put on their breeding colors. And yeah, there's so many different kinds of darters. They each have different colors and color patterns. They're one of my favorite fish just because they're so pretty.
And those of you who are wanting to put more detail about this fish, Amy's going to, we're going to share the PDF of the photos with you. So you'll have that as reference to put in more detail if you want. But, feel free to just kind of block out some space or maybe leave a little rectangle where you want to put the fish in later.
Right. So to me, one of the most exciting parts of the biodiversity in the river is the mussels. And they have such an incredible life cycle. Alabama has about 170 different species of mussels. And a little over 30% of those are found only here and nowhere else. Now, this particular picture is of a mussel that's found in Alabama, but the picture was taken in Missouri by one of our friends over at Missouri State. And you may not see the mussel in this picture yet. You may just see some fish, but it is this rock-looking thing right here in the middle. And the really cool part is that this thing right here that looks like a fish is not actually a fish. It is part of the mussel, the fleshy part called the mantle. And so here's the really cool thing. Part of a mussel's life cycle has to be spent as a parasite on fish when they're really tiny in their larval stage. They look like tiny little Pac-Men, just like a really miniature mussel with a little tooth on it. And the mussels have to entice these fish to come close to them so they can squirt these larvae all over them and the little Pac-Man will clamp down on them. And so you wonder, well, how do they do that since mussels can't really get up and move around? They can't even see, they don't have eyes. what they do is over time, they've evolved so that the part of their mantle looks like various creatures that a fish would want to eat. So this one looks a little bit like a darter to me. Largemouth bass love to eat small darters. So when the largemouth bass comes in and they don't even have to, eat this mantle piece, they can just get close and maybe they even like nibble on it to see what it is. And when that happens, the mussel releases all these larvae and they clamp onto the fish, especially on its gills. And that's where they live for, several weeks while they grow and they get their nutrients from the blood of the fish. It doesn't really hurt the fish too much. It wouldn't be very beneficial if they killed off their host. But meanwhile, the fish swims all over. And when they get big enough, they just drop off wherever they are. So this is one way that mussels can move upstream or disperse when they themselves don't move. So I wanted to show y'all some really cool videos and I got permission to see them. They just weren't working on my PowerPoint. But if you look at the left over at the used with permission from the Missouri State website, you can go there and find all sorts of really cool videos about this process. It's not just fish that the mantle could look like. Some of them look like crayfish and other little things that that fish might want to eat. Some of them don't look quite like anything, and sometimes fish are just attracted to moving things, and they'll come over and kind of put it in their mouth, and that's when they get squirted with the larva. But just the fact that mussels can't see at all, and that they have, developed this way of dispersing themselves and living as little tiny creatures and getting nutrients is just amazing to me. Also on that website, it can show you pictures of mussels that don't quite look like anything and how fish don't really, they're not really attracted to them. And so their genes aren't passed down to the next generation.
That's so cool, Amy. Thank you so much for taking us through that trip. That is so incredible of the adaptations that these animals have. And it makes me just aware of so much that's going on in your state that I had no idea of. I was just jotting down so many species of snails, of fish, and of mussels. So I know that you are probably more familiar with different universities and places that study these. So we look forward to getting those links from you later to do a little bit more research. But in the meantime, enjoy exploring, like sit in with what we've been looking at and see if other questions come up, because I'm sure they will as you start to think about what is it that we've just explored. Oh, I think Amy has a couple more photos here.
Right, so then my husband finds this turtle skeleton that here's the skull of the turtle. You can tell because the where you might expect to find teeth, there's just a little ridge. And so that's really cool. That will be in the PDF if y'all want to draw that. And then I just wanted to have a parting shot of the river. Just with the beautiful day, the fluffy clouds, the water flowing by. It's been a really great trip to bring all of y'all along to show you my nearby nature today. And my very last slide I wanted to show y'all shows the Cahaba lily. There is a moth on it. I'm not sure it's the one that pollinates it. I tried to look it up. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. And it just shows all the different flowers blooming off that one stalk.
Yeah, the different stages. Very cool.
So anyway, I've really enjoyed taking y'all on this trip to see my nearby nature, and thank y'all for all your patience with my technical craziness. We can make these videos available to anybody to see on YouTube if you would like. I'm not quite sure how they came across over Zoom, but
Yep.
yeah.
We can share that with folks, and the recording of this session I'll make available. I'll just give a direct link to my Zoom recording, and that'll be up for a couple, maybe a week or two before I make a separate video and put it on the website with the PDF and everything that everyone can take a look at. Oh, thank you so much, Amy.
All right, you're very
So
welcome.
I think there's some great comments in here. You know, someone said, this is my vacation. Thank you, Amy. I feel like I have gotten to know another part of our amazing country that I had no idea about. So you've given me an appreciation for some of the things that go on in the South, like the amazing biodiversity that's there and the importance of how we need to be aware of that. So we have an appreciation, and doing nature journaling there is a great way to raise awareness of the incredible life, like those mussels. I'm so eager now. I'm like super eager about like researching, you know, and doing a little bit more. But I'm going to finish my journal pages and like write down more of my questions, just so I can just get those, you know, curiosity juices flowing. And I hope that others had that same experience. So there's been a request for our splitting up into our little group, so each of us can get a little opportunity to speak a little bit about what you've journaled today and maybe share some pages. So we're going to set up so stick around. If you're not feeling comfortable in sharing your page, that's totally okay. But being present to listen to the other people who want to share their excitement and their pages, we'd really appreciate if you stick around for a few minutes to do that. So I'm going to split up into small breakout rooms just for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back, and then we can share in the big room any reflections that we've had and before we wrap up. So let me just do some breakout rooms here. We'll have about 3 or 4 folks in each room. And we will, let's see, go for about 10 minutes, and then we will come back to the big room. And you don't have to do anything. You'll automatically go to the rooms. So we'll see you in a few minutes. All right. We're going to wait for everyone else to come back. Welcome back. Gonna wait just a few moments for everyone to come back. All right, that was so much fun. Amy, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for taking us on this field trip with you, because I feel like we've just went through this refreshing river and I can't wait to go back, maybe this time in person. So I don't know how everyone else, the discussion went in your groups, but the little group I was in was just, we were really excited about all the new things that we saw and how it has sparked an interest in life cycles and ecosystems and researching not only what we learned about Cahaba River, but bringing that back to our own backyard and saying, what's in my backyard? Like, what does what we looked at today remind me of in my yard? So I'd love to, I'm gonna just share my screen here. And if you guys have something that you want to share, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to, do that live, we can do that in just a second. I want to share my screen and let you know. So those of you who are new to nature journaling and if you perhaps felt a little overwhelmed with everything that was going on so fast, not to worry. This is all, all of nature journaling is not this fast, but I've had lots of time, many years to practice, but I have been doing a lot more scribble sketching in my journals, and that has helped me capture things more quickly. And it actually, to me, it feels like the journal pages are not a representation of what I'm actually seeing, but it's actually something that reminds me of the experience, so that when I look at my page, it's just bringing me back to the moment. So it's not necessarily that you need to know that these are children aged 8 to 12 or whatever, right? Like, I'm not comfortable with how I draw people, but I did it anyways. I just did the practice of contour drawing, looking at the photo and just drawing what I see and letting go of what the finished product was. But when I look at this picture, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at drawing people, it reminds me of Amy's voice talking to me about, let's put our water shoes on and walk through the river, and this is how cold it was. And I invite you to do the same when you're nature journaling, whether it's from a video or in person, is to free yourself from the expectation that it needs to be a certain way. So scribble sketching the stand of lilies to show what it looked like. And it's okay that I didn't get all the detail or all the color. Oh, this is what I wanted to show, a cross-section diagram. That's always a fun thing to use because this is a really interesting shape. So a diagram is not a finished picture, but it just has some simple lines to show the shape of what was going on. Making boxes. So I scribbled all over this page, and then I drew a circle so that you can see some things more clearly. I put a box around this section to show yesterday, today, and tomorrow flowers. So you can do the same if you had scribbled some pictures. I was so excited to hear about the Sphinx moth, so I left a little bit of space so that I can put some more questions that I have about it, maybe other possible pollinators, because there could be other things that could be pollinators. And the dragonflies. So again, more scribble sketching, right? And this way I'm done. I don't have to go back and add more detail. I might add a little bit of color, but I did contour drawings and I love the messiness of it because it frees me to, now I can go back and add more questions, right? Like I had all these questions. I had time for questions because I was scribble sketching. The plants underwater, I just have lots of questions about that. And I did a cartoon sketch and put the snails on there so that I can remember, oh yeah, the snails are on the leaves as well as the stalks. And then this crazy thing, I think I'm going to have to take another whole page. And Barbara did a little life cycle cartoon. And so she had a big circle with arrows going around to draw the life cycle of this mussel and how the larva attaches to fish and blah, 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 blah. So you can incorporate all those visual elements into your nature journal to make it more alive. And so you can help remember this information. So none of this needs to be memorized. This is all like, the more excitement you have with this, you're going to remember it. I mean, that's how our memory works, right? If we're excited and joyful, even if we're terrified and scared, when we have emotion, that's when we remember stuff. So, just being excited and joy, and follow your curiosity and draw only whatever is interesting to you. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to hop on over to the gallery and see if, let's see, if there's anyone else that wants to have some reflections about what we went through, or appreciations for Amy, or questions or comments. We're open for anyone.
I have a question for Amy. Does the creeks or the river stay at the same speed all year long, or are there slow times? And how does it change? Is it colder in the winter?
That's a very good question. You know, since it's a river, it's going to carry away the rainwater that runs off. So during the rainy season, it's going to be higher. You know, sometimes in the spring, the river is so high that we can't go see the lilies because they're underwater. Other times, it doesn't rain much in the spring, and if you try to canoe through that section, you will be dragging your canoe over a bunch of rocks. So it definitely varies. Of course, the water temperature is going to vary with the season. In the summertime, like, okay, so this was early May when we went, and when we sat down with the lilies, it was really refreshing to sit in the water. But towards the end of summer, the sun has been heating up the water, and it's really kind of getting in a bath water. It's not refreshing, and you think, oh, this isn't that fun. So, and then certainly in the winter, it cools off again.
So the reason they stop blooming might be because of the lack of water or the heat.
It could be. I don't know if they're blooming because of like the amount of sunlight they get, if that's their cue, or if it's the water temperature or water levels. That's a very good question.
I'm curious. Very good.
Yeah, I was wanting to come back to Amy's, in the beginning, Amy, you were saying that these have very specific requirements and that they need this rocky bottom and fast flowing rivers and lots of oxygen. And that there have been research to study the precise oxygen level that the bulbs need in order to grow. And that people who tried to grow them in other places have failed. That leads me to think that because of these very specific requirements and the fact that we can't grow them anywhere else, that the habitat that they're in is really, really important. And you've shown us all of these different creatures, invertebrates, animals, plants that are living together with the Cahaba lily. Makes me think that learning about this kind of biodiversity and the habitat is really important. This whole ecosystem wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the conditions in that river. And I don't know, it's just kind of like it's a web, right? They're all connected. They're all interconnected. So if you didn't have the water conditions or the those giant rocky bottoms where the bulbs kind of, plant themselves, that none of this would be there. And I'm really glad that you also talked about like the damming of rivers and how, this one's not dammed, so we have that river. And I know they're not endangered, but it makes me think that they could be easily threatened if we're not thoughtful. So I think having this kind of educational moment to let us know about that is really, really valuable.
Right. We think about hydropower as being so environmentally friendly and renewable, and it's renewable, but it destroys the habitats that were there already.
Right.
And another thing, even if we keep the dams away from this particular river, it still has threats from Birmingham being upstream. For example, around here, when people develop a neighborhood, they clear off all the trees, and then they go in and put in the houses and plant a few trees back. And maybe 10 years from now, that soil is safely I don't have the word for it. Anyway, in the meantime, while we're developing that neighborhood, when it rains, it washes away that dirt. That dirt's going to wash into the river. When the river's running quickly, it's almost like sandblasting those snails. But when it slows down and the dirt is heavier and it starts to fall out, it fills in those cracks where the lilies need to bloom, where the fish need to lay their eggs. So it's not just dams we need to worry about, but also runoff, the dirt, uh, the oil and stuff that runs off of parking lots, all sorts of things that we need to be aware of so that we can protect the river from these threats. And so if people don't know what's there, if they don't know what there is to appreciate in the river, then they won't know that they need to take action, and maybe change their
Exactly.
behaviors and do what they can to help save this beautiful space.
Exactly. It just goes to show that, we wouldn't really care to protect something that we don't know about, or that we don't have a relationship with. So I think that's why nature journaling is a really powerful tool in allowing us to get to know nature, to develop a relationship with, to grow our curiosity and wonder about it. And through that, we start to care more and we become stewards naturally. We don't have to push people to protect things if we develop that relationship first. So
Exactly.
nature journaling for all of you, you're enjoying this, but maybe you can share that with your family, with your friends, with your neighborhood. Create your own little club. I just got an email the other day from one of our members. She's not here right now, but she said she, over the whole year of being here in this group and taking classes with me, she has now the courage, and she had some women from her local area get together and they went outside and they did some nature journaling. And to hear about that kind of thing and helping, it's like the ripple goes out. Each of you can create your own ripple from this little circle. So I'm just really grateful for everyone who comes and is really excited. Share your excitement with the rest of the world. We really need this kind of light, right? Spreading this light and excitement and love for the only planet we have. So I'm going to pop in my newsletter here for those of you who aren't already on it. There's a lot of information in there that has the link to the Padlet that we can share our pages. I would love to see if you're willing to share those on that page. And then there's information about the private community, because I know that some folks are not comfortable with sharing a page in public. So I'm creating a place where those of you who are interested in doing this kind of thing, privately and not on social media, will be able to have that opportunity. So you can just click on the link and it'll open up in your web browser and you can take a look at it later. And Ray Bonta wants to share something. So let's hop on over there. Okay, Raybonto, you can unmute.
Yeah, so my pages are rather empty nowadays, but then these are the Cahaba lilies.
Cool. Oh, I love all the shades of green that you used. Oh, and you did a lot of really quick gesture sketches too. Awesome. Yes. Oh, Raybonto, you're getting really great at just capturing things really rapidly. Oh, you even did the turtle skull. Very cool. Yeah, and now you have plenty of room to go back and like add a little more details about any questions that popped up, and maybe doing some research and adding some more information.
Thank you.
Thank
I love
you.
seeing what everybody captured from the field trip. It's so fun to see what everybody else saw.
Is there anyone else who'd like to share any thoughts or pages? Yeah, Rose. Yeah, let's have you come and join us.
I was intimidated at having to sketch so fast. And I also just wanted to watch and sit in amazement at the beautiful images
Yeah.
that were being shown by Amy. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing the beautiful part of heaven that you live in.
Oh, yeah, Rose, you've got some great observations there.
I observed these similar lily in a local botanical garden just last week. And so I was really pleased to see
Oh, whoa,
its cousin down in Alabama.
nice.
Lots of fun.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. Oh, someone's asking, Rose, where do you live? Where did you see that flower?
I live in Tucson, Arizona. It's in the
Arizona.
Sonoran Desert, and there's a local botanical garden, and they had created a riparian habitat that must mimic another area of Arizona, and that's where these lilies were growing.
Mhm.
So it was cool to see
Yeah.
2 of them in 1 week from
Yeah.
different parts of the country.
Yeah. So here's a challenge. Maybe all of us in the next 2 weeks, when we're looking at flowers, pay attention and see if we see any similarities in what the flower that we saw to what's in your nearby nature. I want to go back to a question that Ivea had, because I had a similar question, about the soil and the air. Ivea is asking, is it the soil cuts off the air to the roots carried through the water? And that's an open question. It doesn't have to be answered, but it's an opportunity to get your creative juices flowing. My thinking was, well, it's a bulb plant. I know that bulbs carry all of the nutrients that the plant needs. So maybe during that season with the bulb, the plant is okay, but then it doesn't have, I don't know, maybe the roots are only to hang on like seaweeds. I live near the ocean, and kelp forests, they have these structures that look like roots, and they're just hold fast. They hang on to the rocks, and their photosynthesis all happens on the blades, the stem and the blades. And so I wonder, I don't know if this is right or wrong, doesn't matter, but I'm allowing my creativity, like my curiosity to go, okay, so what I know about photosynthesis is the green parts make sugars. The sugars get stored in the roots, and a bulb flower has a big place to store sugar. So how does that affect the oxygen? I have no idea, but that's exciting, right? Like Ivea is like, I don't know about river science and I want to learn. And so do I. So I think this is why sharing our nearby nature, Amy is sharing what's local to her, what's exciting, is giving us inspiration. So I would really love, if anyone else had some nearby nature they want to share. It doesn't have to be a fancy production. It can just be, you have 3 photos of some interesting or even common, actually should be common, a common nearby thing, and share it with us. It's going to be uncommon and exciting and interesting to other people because we have an international group. So think about what's common in your nearby nature, and whether you would like to share it. Maybe we can have a sharing day where we have a couple of people and you share 2 or 3 pictures, and we can sketch and journal and ask questions. So think about that. I would love to create more places for community, places for us to have dialogue. So not just me talking and sharing, but really I want everyone's voices in. So go to the newsletter. There's a link to the community. I call it a wait list, but really it's a Google form. And if you go there, there's a bunch of questions, and you can give feedback on what you would love to see in a community, because I want to build it with you. This is for all of us. So, and it's going to change depending on what we want. And I know that personally, social media has not been a good place for me to be. It is really distracting, and it feeds this idea of comparing and competition. And even this morning, I went on to post this event and I left feeling this dread, like I wasn't doing enough, because everyone else was doing stuff. And I thought, I don't want any of you guys to feel that. I don't want to have to, put this group on Facebook to make it feel like you have to be in presence of the distraction. So Facebook has a lot of fun places to be, but for this group, I'd love to create a safe place where we can just share our love of nature. So that's what I'm putting out there. So let's see if there's any other questions or comments. Anyone else? So in 2 weeks, we'll meet back here officially. Bring your colored pencils. If you don't use colored pencils, not to worry. I think that Jen is going to start with just a basic 12 color set. So I'm going to put up the supplies. She does have some supplies, but she said basically if you had 3 colored pencils, the cyan, magenta, and yellow, we're going to learn how to get different colors in your nature journal. So it should be really fun. And for those of you who already use colored pencils, you might pick up some new tips on how to use colored pencils and watercolor pencils. So I look forward to seeing all of you guys. And if you can help support me in doing, this is my full-time work. This is my full-time work. I'm doing this for free. I do teach classes, but if you like what you're seeing and want to support it and can support it, join me on Patreon, or you can go to my donation page on my website. So I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing your pages on Padlet, and see you in 2 weeks. And Amy,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much. So
Thank
much
you.
fun.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Rayvanto. Oh, bye, Chris. Nice to see
Bye.
you. Bye,
Bye.
Connie. Bye, Caroline. Rita, Karen. Hey, Jane, it was nice to see you. Rose, nice to see you. Bye, Chris, Stella.
Bye.
And Angie, nice to have you here. Bye, Chris. And we have Rita and Karen. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right, take care. Amy, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Those videos did not